You've been diagnosed with high cholesterol or triglycerides, and as a result, you got the most common advice like eat better and exercise. But this advice lacks precision. Furthermore, how much does the most common advice actually impact your cholesterol and triglyceride levels? That's exactly what we're going to cover in this video. You're going to learn 7.5 cholesterol myths that are harming your health. Myth number 1 is that only overweight and obese people have high cholesterol. That is not true. It is true that more overweight and obese people have high cholesterol, but lots of lean people have high cholesterol as well. Case in point, in one study of 13,745 people, they were divided into subgroups based on their weight, and the researchers looked at the relationship between their weight and their health status. What they found is that in normal weight individuals, the prevalence of dyslipidemia is 9%. Now, what does that term mean? Dyslipidemia means either high total cholesterol, high LDL, high triglycerides, or low HDL. That's dyslipidemia. Myth number 2 is that you have to lose weight to improve your cholesterol levels. It's helpful for your heart health in general, but not specifically for your cholesterol levels. And here's why. Research shows that weight loss has a very minimal effect on your cholesterol levels and triglycerides. In one meta-analysis, researchers found that for every 1 kilogram or 2.2 pounds of weight loss, total cholesterol drops by only 0.02 millimoles per liter or 0.8 milligrams per deciliter in American units, in imperial units. Now that is a very disappointing amount of improvement for a lot of effort. In addition to that, the same meta-analysis found that LDL, the bad cholesterol, decreased by 0.02 millimoles per liter or 0.8 milligrams per deciliter. HDL didn't change as a result of weight loss, which is pretty disappointing, and triglycerides only decreased by 0.02 millimoles per liter or 1.3 milligrams per deciliter. In other words, you have to lose a lot of weight to make any changes to your cholesterol levels. There are better, easier, faster, more impactful ways to improve your cholesterol levels than losing weight. That's not to say that you shouldn't lose weight. Weight loss is very beneficial for many things. Heart health in general, yes. Cholesterol and triglycerides specifically, not that much. It also depends on how you lose weight, which we'll talk about later on in this video. Myth number 3 is that you can feel high cholesterol. Unfortunately, there is no sensation called high cholesterol. There is pain, there's fatigue, there's happiness, there's hunger, there's no sensation for high cholesterol. So it's not something you can feel. You have to get tested for it and see if you have it or not. Myth number 4 is that a high cholesterol level can predict a heart attack. I mean, that's the original reason that cholesterol started to get measured back in the 1950s and 60s, to be able to predict a heart attack before it happens. With much research, they found that its predictive ability by itself is very poor. For instance, in one study, 42% of the people who had a heart attack actually had normal cholesterol levels, 42%, which means that total cholesterol by itself is a very poor predictor of heart disease. Now, I keep emphasizing by itself because when you combine it with other markers like HDL, LDL, triglycerides, and others that I talk about in my book, High Cholesterol Reversal Secrets, its predictive power improves drastically. Myth number 5 is that a high LDL level is always bad. After we discovered that total cholesterol is a poor predictor of heart disease, we started to look for other markers that will be better predictors of heart disease. So then we came out with LDL and HDL. Now, it was quickly coined that LDL was bad cholesterol and HDL was good cholesterol. And the reason that I put it into quotation marks is because LDL is not always bad. We realized eventually that there are many subtypes of LDL and there are a few also subtypes of HDL. Not all LDL is bad, not all HDL is good. For example, with LDL, they are classified based on their size and density. Large, fluffy LDL molecules are actually not that harmful for you. In fact, in some cases, they're beneficial. It's the small, dense LDL particles that are called atherogenic, that are harmful. So just measuring LDL cholesterol by itself doesn't tell you the proportion of small, dense LDL and large, fluffy LDL. So again, to sum up, a high LDL level is not always bad unless you know the subfractions. Myth number 6 is the opposite of that, is that a high HDL level is always good. Again, HDL is classified as the good cholesterol, but again, there are subtypes of HDL and not all are equally beneficial. There's HDL2 and HDL3. HDL2 is usually what we associate with HDL. It takes cholesterol from the arteries and takes it back to the liver. HDL3 actually doesn't do that nearly as well as HDL2. It does it a little bit, but not as well. So if you see a really, really high HDL level, that doesn't necessarily mean you're particularly healthy. It just means that potentially your subfractions are off, which you wouldn't know without subfraction testing. Myth number 7 is that you need to avoid meat to have good cholesterol levels. Now that is just not true, and that largely comes from vegan propaganda. And here is why this is not true. First of all, the studies that show that meat is bad for you, they are observational studies. Observational studies just observe what happens. They cannot infer cause and effect relationships. We know that correlation does not mean causation. For instance, when sunscreen sales go up, drowning levels also go up. Does that mean that sunscreen causes drowning? No. Sunscreen is associated with drowning, but it doesn't mean that one causes the other. There's a third variable at play here, temperature. When temperature goes up, people spend more time outdoors, they buy more sunscreen. When people spend more time outdoors, they also go swimming more. So that's correlation, but not causation. Same thing here. Just because meat consumption is associated with higher cholesterol levels doesn't mean that meat consumption causes higher cholesterol levels. Another problem with the research that correlates meat consumption with cholesterol levels is that they lump all meat eaters into one category. At the one end of the spectrum, there are meat eaters who are farmers. They have their own chickens, they know the health status of each individual chicken, and they eat the healthy chickens. At the other end of the spectrum of meat eaters are people who eat McDonald's 3 times a day. We can't really group both of those into one category. There are drastic differences between the quality of the meat in one category and the quality of the meat in another category. Lastly, the problem with that kind of research is it manipulates more than one variable. In good research, in interventional research, you should only manipulate one variable. So the question is the presence of meat that's causing high cholesterol or the absence of vegetables? Why does it have to be meat or vegetables? Why can't it be meat and vegetables? If you have a high meat consumption and a high vegetable consumption, there is no problem with a high meat consumption by itself. A high meat consumption is only a problem if we're eating processed meat. Even red meat that is not processed is perfectly fine. It's processed red meat and charred red meat that is problematic. Our final myth, which is a half myth, is myth 7.5, is that you should avoid eggs and shrimps because they're high in cholesterol and therefore they cause high blood cholesterol. At the one end of the spectrum, there are people saying cholesterol in food does not raise cholesterol in blood. And largely that's true, but not entirely true. Case in point, in one study, 36 dyslipidemic adults with an average age of 60 ate 3 eggs per day for 6 weeks. And here's what happened after 6 weeks. Nobody lost weight, so we know that any changes that are following are not due to weight loss. Their total cholesterol dropped by 2%, LDL also dropped by 2%, HDL dropped by 2%, which is not a good thing, we want HDL higher, and triglycerides dropped by 11%. Net, that's actually a positive thing, even if it's very, very minor. Now, that's just in 36 dyslipidemic adults. What about in other populations? In some populations, dietary cholesterol does raise blood cholesterol. In another study of 3,850 individuals, they found that Chinese people as well as women respond to dietary cholesterol more than men as well as women who are not Chinese. In addition to that, there are just hyper responders to dietary cholesterol. You could be a male who's not Chinese and you still have an exaggerated response to dietary cholesterol where it does raise your cholesterol levels. If you want to dive deeper into this, check out my upcoming book called High Cholesterol Reversal Secrets on Amazon. Or if you want personal help with your own, not just cholesterol levels, although you'll get that, with your heart health in general, feel free to click on the link in the description below, which will take you to our homepage where you can apply for a consultation for a 15-minute chat to see, can we work together? This is a no pressure, no obligation, no sales pitch chat, just to see, can we help you and does it make sense to talk further about our services?